Hi everyone, it's Peter Fragascatos, your Member of Parliament in London North Centre. I want to send a simple message of support as we celebrate and reflect upon the International Day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia. We know that as individuals and as communities, we are strengthened when we embrace diversity. Let's continue to do that. Let's continue to work together against hate and everything it gives rise to. I know with COVID-19, it's a difficult time right now. Normally, we would be celebrating and gathering together and thinking about what this day represents in concert. We can't do that right now, but through this video message, all of us, all community leaders, live up to its ethic and embrace its meaning. Let's continue to stay in touch. We'll get through all of the current challenges together and fight the next fight together. Thanks very much.
1, 2, 3.
I just wanna see my friends. I wanna walk the street again, but I gotta be patient. So let's enjoy this combination.
I just wanna feel your love, 'cause Instagram is not enough for me. So I gotta be patient. Let's enjoy this combination.
And every day we'll sing a song to make you dance until this ends.
I just wanna see my friends. I wanna walk the streets again. So I gotta be patient. Let's enjoy this combination.
Si tienes ganas de salir, lo siento pero no, tienes que quedarte ahí. Pero cuando canto esta canción, ahí me brilla el corazón y me siento muy feliz. And every day we'll sing a song to make you dance until this ends.
I just wanna see my friends. I wanna walk the street again, but I gotta be patient. So let's enjoy this combination.
Every night and
So I gotta be patient. Let's enjoy this combination.
I gotta be patient. So let's enjoy this combination.
When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Oh, where troubles melt like lemon drops, away above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. That's why, oh why can't I? Happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow. Why, oh why can't I?
Okay, my experience with homophobia and transphobia, there have been some people that have confused a drag queen with transsexuals or trans women. And it's only happened to me a few times. I think most people understand the difference between a drag queen and a trans woman. Not all, but most. I was asked if I was a tranny, and at first I wasn't really sure of the title because I never really use that word. I never used the word tranny. I'd heard it and never really thought about it. Nobody explained to me what it was. So when somebody finally explained it to me, I said to him, I'm a drag queen, and there was a trans woman beside me, and I said, and this is trans. She's trans. And he's like, still angry, but he goes, well, you're both freaks. And then we walked away. Homophobia has taken many spots in my life, many times in my life, many moments of my life where people have called, from the bus, fag, queer, batty, you get it all. And it can be very hurtful and painful because sometimes it is said like in the mall, when it was said, it was done to get attention, and it was followed into the bathroom. And security did nothing. I mean, this is going back more than 15 years ago, so it didn't really matter what happened to us. And I went to go use the bathroom like any other normal human being, and I found myself covered in chocolate strawberry milkshake. And I used the paper towel, wiped myself off. I went to security and complained. and they're like, well, maybe you shouldn't just act up. Maybe you shouldn't have brought this upon yourself. So the homophobia is, people think that when you're angry and you're complaining, because that's all you do is complain, that you bring it upon yourself. It's dismissive language and empty language is how it's dealt with. And that's the problem I've had many, many times, is that you say you've been attacked and you've been gone after, and it's sort of dismissed. Or people go, yeah, this happens. Or they'll go, well, that's London, or this conservative city, or it's dismissive language and empty language, which does not really allow for healing or for dialogue or for some corrective procedure to be implemented. Nowadays, over the last 10 years, I would think, in London, you call a kid something miserable and ugly at school, you're probably going to get it. The teacher will speak to you. Maybe you'll be at the principal's office. Perhaps you'll be, perhaps you'll be at your, you'll be in a meeting. Maybe letters get sent out. I don't know if they do that. But it's not as readily tolerated. I'm a little older, and so therefore my experiences, opposed to somebody who's 20, 25, they just see it as, well, it's my right, I can walk around. Well, when you didn't have that right in the beginning, and you didn't have that freedom in that sense, you are still left with the residual effect of what it has done to you, and you're still cautious. I rarely use the bathroom in a mall, even now. And I'm not really a big mall shopper, so that may not help much. But I'm still very conscientious. I'm still very much aware. It still gets called out. You still get called fag. And if they can be a little nastier, they get a little nastier. You know, not too long ago, I had an egg thrown at me. And it made a lot of attention about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. It got a lot of attention. I didn't expect it to get that kind of attention. So the result of people coming up to me in the gyms, I'm sorry this happened to you. A lady in church sat down beside me and says, I can't believe somebody treated you so badly. And I'm like, I can't believe people don't think they wouldn't. So I'm still trying to deal with, I guess it's called trauma, the meanness of the past. And then you add the fact that I'm of color, then they have a real riotous time and they know they can get away with it. And over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, I've noticed in London that there has been some changes that people actually now will stop and get angry and say something. When I first came back to London, I was accosted where the Shoppers used to be. It's now a dollar store on Dundas. And it was about 8 o'clock at night, and people were walking around with their cell phones, probably looking for where to buy a cheeseburger or something. And I was being accosted by 3 Nazi skinheads. Well, nobody did anything. And so what I get is, oh, Katu, you know, oh, well, this. So it's dismissive. It's like, well, you go through this. You're just animated. You're just this. You know, you're just a drag queen. You're just. So it's almost as if you were bringing it upon yourself and we're going to dismiss it. Empty language is extremely powerful when used against you, because people say things like, well, they'll look at you, well, are you sure? Is it like that? You know, what did you say to bring this on? That's empty language. And dismissive language is, well, you know, you're fine, you're here now. That's dismissive. No, I'm still left with the anger and the resentment. But if I go act out, we have 25 people to tell me, no, you're not doing it. So the onus is on you to prove it. So if the haters and the racists and the anti-ists, as I like to call them, don't come out and say, hi, I'm the anti-ist, the hater that did this, here's my name, my number. Society often wants to look at it and say, well, then it didn't happen. But unfortunately, many people in the gay community and the trans community and the rest do not feel comfortable to speak out. And sometimes people say things flippantly and they don't mean it. Question them first. I've had people call me a few names and I questioned. I'm intelligent enough to figure that sometimes it's just a comment that came out. It doesn't mean anything. It's empty in itself and its content, because they're sitting beside me and they're talking to me about something and they just misuse the word or use it incorrectly. And then you can correct them and say, you know, if it was somebody else, you might have some trouble with this. So I see, and I want to try to harmonize, make things better. So basically, in a nutshell, I think I've given you enough.
Hello, everyone. This is Naomi Nadia. I'm your community advocate. I go as she, her, and hers. One of the experiences I've had with persons in the community, out of the community actually. I was with two of my friends, two gay friends, and we were walking, and this young man who happens to be of Muslim faith, he was following me and screaming very, very bad things at me. He followed me throughout the entire Victoria Park. He started from the cenotaph all the way to the amphitheater, literally screaming the F word at me, saying I'm a man in a dress. And I was very, very humiliated. I felt so defeated internally. My friends were saying, hey, one said you should call the police. The other one said, no, don't call the police. Doesn't want that attention. So I called the police. The police showed up and they talked to the young man and they started telling him, this is Canada. You cannot do this. You cannot just do this. We start threatening people that way. I did wanted more. I was upset. In that time, I was very upset, and I wanted them to arrest him because I felt like he embarrassed the living life out of me in front of tens of people. And I was like, everyone saw and everyone heard, but no one said anything. No one said anything. No one was on my side. I felt upset. I felt angry. And the police actually stood up for me. They were on my side. And to this day, I see the young man on the street and he passes up and down and he respects me. He doesn't say one word. He says absolutely nothing. And so because of that, I will forever be grateful of the help I got from the London Police Services. I do not have anything negative, and I don't have any negative experiences with the London Police Services. Knock on wood. So in that case, and as a trans woman, as a black trans woman, I know many people would want me to say I hate the police because I'm black and because I'm trans. I know a lot of people would love that. But in my case, that's not the story. It's just I have never had any type of instances where I'm harassed or threatened or bullied by the London Police Services or any other police for that at that, and that's good, I think. But yeah, so this is my little story, and that's what I wanted to share with people. I don't know if this will be of any use to what you guys would like to use this information for, but I've had nothing but positive experiences with the police, and this is one of the best examples of people standing up for me as a trans woman in London, Ontario. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye.
So my name is Anna Ceta Lee. I'm a resident of London, Ontario, and I'm a black straight female who is acutely aware of Black Lives Matter and the request from people of color to allies to speak up when they see racism or microaggressions or a bias. We're asking people to say something. So with that in mind, I'm in the car with my cousin, another straight female, and she sees two men holding hands and she says, ew. And, you know, a couple of years ago, I'm not so sure I would have said anything, really. While I would have thought her response was disgusting, I would not have wanted to rock the boat or cause discomfort, so I would have said nothing. But you can't ask people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And so I said something. And that started a conversation that got heated and uncomfortable. And she thought I was attacking her. And, which, by the way, is a very common response when you start to call people out on their phobias. They feel like you're attacking their way of thinking or their lifestyle or their history, or they get very aggressive sometimes. And while she didn't get aggressive, she did get very emotional. And again, she thought I was attacking her personally. I was not, but that's how she perceived it. And That relationship, we had been childhood friends, ended pretty much that day. She requested an apology. I refused to give it. And you're wrong. You can't treat people like that. So my point is that if you are a straight ally and you observe homophobia or transphobia in your friends or family group, you have a moral responsibility to say something. And there will be consequences to that. You may lose friendships. You may lose family. And I guess that's everyone's individual decision, whether or not they want to risk that. It will be uncomfortable. People may feel like you're attacking them. But I feel like in 2021, we have a responsibility to do these things. And so, while I've never experienced homophobia or transphobia myself, I have experienced racism. And so I would have loved for someone to intervene, either as it's happening or after the fact. And it has happened a couple of times, if I'm honest. And it has always almost made me cry, to be honest. So I think that if you're a straight person and you're seeing these things, you need to speak up. You need to say something. Preferably to both parties. But in this situation, I didn't know these two gentlemen. But I knew my cousin. And I knew I was going to have to push back on that. And while it ended our relationship and our friendship, I do not regret it. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because I can look at myself in the mirror, and that means more to me than anything else. And that kind of translated into my activism. I'm on the board of Pride now. And I've had an opportunity to meet more people in the community. And I've been so impressed with the courage and the community. And I've been rewarded in more ways than I could have imagined from that one conversation that was incredibly difficult. And so I would encourage, if there's any straight people watching this, speak up, say something, that's the only way things change. So that's my secondhand response to homophobia that I observed. That's all, folks.
Vocally, I might pull from like someone like Adam Lambert, where instrumentally it might be someone like Gorgon City, who is a deep house duo that I love. They have amazing music. I pull a lot of my vibes and my sounds from that and my references to that. Performance-wise, I was a very typical young gay male that enjoyed a lot of Lady Gaga and Britney Spears, as they all do. And it was basically a huge influence. Britney Spears' performance art, it was just fascinating to me as a kid. The stages, the costuming, the
I'm Constable Anthea Fordyce with the London Police Service, and I've been asked to provide a video. I am truly honoured to participate in this video collage. I don't mind a trip down memory lane, but reminiscing about negative experiences that I've gone through because of who I am isn't easy. But these experiences, the good, the bad and the ugly, have shaped me into the woman I am today. Our country has come a really long way when it comes to LGBTQ2+ issues. I mean, look at what I'm wearing, but we aren't perfect. My goal every day is to act as a role model, so people who look or sound or love like me know that they have a place in our society. I was born and raised in Ireland, a beautiful country, a very religious country, a country that only saw marriage between a man and a woman until very recently. And fortunately, times have changed back in my homeland and changed for the better, which is truly amazing. I was 18 years old when I started my career as a police officer in the Metropolitan Police Service in London, England. And London has long been one of the most diverse cities in the entire world, and a pretty good place to be gay. Even then, my now wife and I were turned away from a restaurant for holding hands on the grounds that the restaurant was a family establishment. Our very existence was deemed PG-13. The irony is that I've always wanted a family. Of course, that didn't stop people from reminding me that I would never have kids because I wouldn't marry a man, or that my dad wouldn't be able to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day because I'm not having a real wedding. There's a multitude of scenarios and slights that I've had to contend with over the years, but I hold no hate in my heart. These experiences have helped make me who I am today. I'm a proud wife, mother, daughter, sister, colleague, and quite honestly a role model to others who are just starting to learn who they are and accepting themselves. I've been a police officer longer than I was ever not a police officer, and it is an integral part of my identity. I'm filled with pride every time I put my uniform on. While it may seem cheesy, I did become a police officer to make a difference. I keep that at the front of my mind whenever I put my uniform on. This career is certainly more of a lifestyle than just a job, and it really permeates through everything that I do. Have I experienced offensive comments in the workplace? Absolutely. I started policing almost 20 years ago, so the profession has had some catching up to do. There's still things here and there, like referring to a bad or negative thing as gay. But rather than scolding a person for that comment, I see it as an opportunity to share how their words really affect people like me. When people see that I'm a happily married woman with 5 amazing, beautiful children, it helps to really close that gap. I've got a mortgage. I spend way too much money at Costco. My wife and I go to parent-teacher nights. We're not so different. Like society at large, my profession is learning to embrace members of the LGBTQ2+ community, and I absolutely love coming to work every single day because of it. I tell my kids each and every day that they have one job, and that is be awesome. Just be awesome, be you, do your best in everything that you do. And I want them to be proud of who they are, proud of their family, proud that they have 2 awesome moms that love them unconditionally. My wife and I are sharing our 11th wedding anniversary together in a couple of days. We've been together even longer than that. I couldn't imagine my life any other way, and I feel extremely lucky to be here in London, Ontario, living my life the way I want to live it. In a successful career with caring, compassionate co-workers, and a loving home to come back to each and every day. While I won't sugarcoat the homophobia I've experienced in my life, I am surrounded by people who don't treat me different than anyone else and judge my character for my deeds rather than who I love. Thanks so much to London Pride Festival for including me in this video collage, and I truly look forward to seeing all the other submissions. Thank you.
Happy IDAHOT, everyone. I'm Terence Kernahan, Member of Provincial Parliament for London North Centre. As we celebrate the gains the 2S LGBTQIA community have made, we think back to our history, how we struggled, and how we fought. As the first openly gay MPP in London's history, I've dealt with my fair share of overt as well as subtle homophobia. During the throne speech, when the newly elected Conservative government laid out their legislative program, their goals, and their agenda, I was shocked that in the list of identities protected by our Human Rights Code, that the word lifestyle was included. To me, this was dog whistle politics. You see, the word lifestyle is coded language, implying that being gay is a choice. It went straight to my heart and went absolutely cold in that moment. I had just been elected in a campaign which took direct aim at the 2S LGBTQIA community. In particular, I think to the Conservative leadership race, Antonia Granick Allen. She blamed the health and phys ed curriculum, also known as the sex ed curriculum, for low math scores, and openly claimed that gay marriage was leading to the demise of our society. Fortunately, she did not win. But Doug Ford didn't denounce these views either, and he plowed ahead, repealing the sex ed curriculum. 2S LGBTQIA identities and families were scrubbed from the curriculum, our voices erased, our lives minimized. For a year, I was proud to fight alongside the Ontario NDP to reinstate a modern, inclusive curriculum. I was also proud to see Ontarians speak up loudly, demanding the return of a curriculum that include 2S LGBTQIA families, social media, and consent. When faced with the results, Premier Ford had the audacity to angrily blame, quote unquote, certain groups. From where I sit, I have a different name for certain groups. I call them Ontarians. Since then, I pressed the Minister of Education, asking her if she could say the words homophobia and transphobia on the day of Pink. Her reply, those words don't exist in my vocabulary. As I look back, we've seen a government that has refused to distance themselves and denounce white supremacist views of people like Faith Goldie, the Proud Boys, and happily posed for pictures with them. Charles McVitie, whose views on the 2S LGBTQIA community do not bear repeating, was one of Doug Ford's honored guests, sitting front row with his family when Ford was sworn in. We have many opportunities each and every day to stand up for others, to do the right thing, to not be a bystander. I'm so thankful to have met many people who think of others, who are motivated by an inner sense of goodness, fairness, and justice. Listening leads to understanding, and I look forward to a culture of appreciation and understanding for the 2S LGBTQIA community, not simple tolerance. I encourage everyone to get involved in the political process, read party platforms, and make sure you're reflected and you see the change you want in this world. I also encourage you to get involved with your local riding association, no matter your political stripe. I know I'd love your help. You're beautiful, and you are loved. The 2S LGBTQIA community makes this world better and brighter, and it's important that we take our space. We take our seat at the table. We need more love in this world. I refuse to give up on hope for a brighter future. Happy IDAHOT Be, everyone. Stay safe.
Hello, my name's Amanda Pearson, and I'm the guest host for this episode of Let's Talk Trans London. This episode is a special event that we are airing today, May the 17th, International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. We have a guest, which will be familiar to a lot of people in the London, Ontario community. His name is Mayson Fulk. I met Mayson a couple of years ago. I've watched some of his talks on various other programming, including a talk last year during the virtual Pride event. I'm really excited to be able to talk to Mayson today. And I'm going to start by asking Mayson to introduce himself and just give us a brief explanation of who he is, so we can get to know him a bit better. Mayson?
Thank you, Amanda. My name's Mayson Fulk. I've been living here in London, Ontario for about 10 years. Originally moved to Canada from the States. I do some factory work out on industrial at Leggett and Platt Automotive, and I'm a member of the United Steelworkers. As a member of the United Steelworkers, I've been really involved in their Human and Civil Rights Department on a national and international level. And I'm also the District 6 Trans Liaison, which is a position they created first in District 6. We actually don't have any other trans liaisons in our union right now. So I'm kind of filling in on an international level doing that. And what that is I just help facilitate workplace transitions for some of our members, whether it be talking to their employer or educating their staff representatives, or sometimes it's just moral support, you know, just being there for one of our members that's going through a transition. There's a lot of complications that can arise in the workplace when you're transitioning. So whether it's just smoothing them out or being there for somebody, it's a really rewarding role. I also do a lot of developing workshops and educations for the union on a broader level. So we'll do workshops at conferences, often as a committee, where it can be LGBTQ2 plus 101 or, you know, transition 101, how to build allyship, things like that. And it's really about educating the rank and file membership. A lot of our higher level staff is a little bit more educated, but in order to keep things, you know, level across our union and really eliminate workplace harassment and discrimination, it involves educating everyone. So I've been doing that for a couple of years within the union and kind of working my way through the ranks of the United Steelworkers.
Well, that's fascinating. I'd like to follow up on a couple of things you said. You said you moved here from the United States 10 years ago. Where did you live in the United States exactly?
So I was born and raised in Ohio, just south of Cleveland. So really just across Lake Erie from here. I stayed in Ohio till I was 19 years old. At that time, I came out as a lesbian, and I was kicked out of my church. I was kicked out of my family. I lost all my friends, and I was kicked out of my home. So I lived in a car for a while. Drove my car down to Virginia after my employment was terminated. I worked in daycare, and at that time, would have been about almost 20 years ago at this point. Being queer in small town Ohio and being a daycare teacher just kind of didn't add up for the employers. So they let me go, which was legal. So I drove my house to Virginia, where I had some friends there, and found some more daycare work down there. And it didn't really last. I ended up getting terminated from 2 daycare positions in Virginia as well, which again, it's legal.
Yeah. Okay.
So that ended my daycare career, and I'd say within the next couple of years, I ended up coming up to Canada.
Yeah. So it was actually legal to terminate an employee because they're lesbian?
Absolutely. Up until about a year ago, actually, it was legal in 30 US states. About a year ago, since Joe Biden entered office, they're rolling that back, and having a lot of debates on where queer rights fit already in the Constitution, because they don't have their own sort of level of protection. They've been trying to pass the Equality Act for some years in the United States. The Equality Act would give protections not just to the workplace for queer and trans people, but also housing protections. For example, it's legal to deny somebody housing because they're queer, or medical protections. It's still legal to deny people medical treatment based on your own religious belief that you don't agree with them.
Unbelievable.
So the Equality Act has passed the House of Representatives. My union was actually one that really helped pass that and wrote letters to the House and to the president urging to pass that act. Now it sits kind of lingering in the Senate, waiting to be heard by the Senate. Whether or not it passes the Senate, though, unless they get rid of the filibuster, probably not. Otherwise, we'd have to get probably 8 or 10 more Republicans to vote in favor of the Equality Act, and it's always difficult to get Republicans to vote in favor of equality.
It must be awfully tough to look at what's happening down in the States now, because you mentioned about 30 states. And I believe the estimate right now is about 30 Republican-controlled states are introducing all sorts of anti-transgender laws to prevent children from being treated for gender dysphoria, and to prevent trans women from being able to compete in women's sport. What do you think of this apparent pushback that's happening right now in the United States?
I think the Republicans are bored. Honestly, it kind of seems like they don't have anything else to really focus on at this time. I'm not sure why all of a sudden trans girls playing sports has become an issue. Trans people have existed forever and have the right to sport just like anybody else. But it seems like a lot of legislators have decided that they're biologists or endocrinologists, even though they don't have the medical facts, are taking a standpoint on this. And, it's sad to see such a strong viewpoint that's not based in fact at all. And
I agree.
And it's being sold, and it's being bought.
Basically selling fear to the masses. So, vote for me and I'll protect you. So a question for you. You probably still have a lot of friends from the United States that you communicate with. And I'm assuming that some are from the LGBT community. What do you recommend to them in terms of, do you actually suggest to them that it might be a good idea to move to Canada, where I'm assuming things are a little bit better?
Well, moving to Canada was the best decision of my life. Not just for the human rights and healthcare, but those two things are big, and definitely keep me here. As for my friends in the States, it's a hard thing. Would life be better for them here? Absolutely. But how does life get better down there if not for advocates staying and fighting, right? So ideally, instead of recommending that people, uproot themselves, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to leave your home and your friends and your family and your job and all of those things just to find acceptance and happiness. And I think really the solution to that lies in becoming your own advocate and participating in activism and really changing things. And that change starts with members of our own community and with our allies.
Absolutely. So I guess my question to you now is you've moved to Canada. You came out as a trans man while living in Canada. So you've lived both, you have the experience of being a lesbian in Canada plus being a trans male in Canada. Do you find any similarities to what's going on in the States, or is it the same? Is it different? Just what's your impression of what things have been like for you while living in Canada?
Being here definitely gave me a lot of privilege. Just the simple fact of knowing that I had human rights to protect me. I was able to come out at work and not have to worry about losing my job, not have to worry about being harassed at my job, or having somebody follow me home from work, or these things that I'm privileged to not have to worry about because I'm here in Canada. And we see that in the States, it's a whole different environment, particularly for trans women and particularly for trans women of color. I get to be out. It's not necessarily like I make a choice one way or another. I have this opportunity because it's safe for me. So I think it's very different from in the States. I don't have to consider my safety at the same level here. Even when I visit the States, I have a kind of a wall of protection that I don't need here.
I can climb a mountain, I can lead my dreams, finding that emotion, the love you gave to me. You know it, you want it, you know I got to have it. I just want to be free. What do you want? What do you want? You know what to believe. What do you want? What do you want? It's alright to be free. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Yeah, yeah. What do you want? What do you want?
Okay. We're back speaking with Mayson Fulk about his experience living in Canada and the U.S. Mayson, you just mentioned privilege, and one of the things that I've always been curious about, as a transgender woman living here in Canada, I noticed I essentially lost my male privilege, and I noticed how different I'm being treated as a female as opposed to when I was expressing myself as male and living the life of a male. It's always interesting to get the reverse perspective on that. Do you have a sense of greater privilege just from identifying as male now?
I think it depends on the circumstance. I'm pretty fortunate to have passability. So in general, you don't know I'm trans unless I tell you that. So that alone comes with a whole lot of privilege, because before people know me or know anything about me, they know that I'm a man. And that's enough to garner a lot of respect that somebody perceived as female does not get. I wouldn't say that that necessarily makes everything easier. For example, I've been in London for like 12 years. People know me here. They knew me before my transition. I'm not known in London as a man. I'm known as a trans man. I've been very out and open, and I identify with that because I transitioned later in life. So I'm not, the idea of stealth doesn't really appeal to me because that erases a lot. You know, I spent 32 years as a woman. One of the things I've definitely noticed is in those 32 years identifying as a woman, I never identified as a feminist. It was something I didn't think a whole lot about or necessarily think applied to me. Transition changed that a lot for me because as soon as you insert yourself into male-dominated spaces, male-dominated conversations, a lot of things become very apparent to you that weren't before. The way men speak, the way men talk about women, you know, the things said behind closed doors, locker room conversation, right? Things like that really quickly turned me into a feminist because it's surprising when you're perceived male, the things that other men feel are acceptable to say to you, which are not acceptable in any way.
Yes, I have a lot of experience, you know, the locker room talk. It's fascinating when you're able to look at life from both sides of this equation. I'm sure we could do a whole show just on white male privilege.
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, I didn't get to be a young man, but I got to be a young woman. And that made me a better man. That those experiences that I've carried into this transition have helped form me into somebody that has a lot of respect for women.
Oh, that's terrific. Moving on here, you are currently working in what I'm assuming is a male-dominated workspace. Men seem to have a lot more difficulty accepting somebody transitioning their gender over women. And I was just wondering, you know, starting out in the workplace, like when you first came out in the workplace, did you face a lot of issues? Were you made to feel uncomfortable? How long did it take for the workplace to actually swing around and start to support you?
Well, in my case, I had been working at this facility for a few years before transition. So I was already well known and, in my opinion, fairly well liked. I got along with the people I worked with, you know, enough that we'd have beers on the weekend or after work or something like that. Interestingly, I think most of the men had no issue with me. They saw me as one of the guys, sort of, until I told them that no, I'm actually one of the guys. And then it became a little bit of an adjustment. But for the most part, I was actually really surprised by the support I got. You know, I work in a factory where the average worker is a 50-year-old straight white man. So I expected to have more trouble than I did. I think part of it was I involved my union early. I made it very clear that I wasn't trying to change your opinions, but you will change your behavior. Go home and tell your wife whatever you want about me, but in the workplace, we're going to have respect. And my union rep backed me up on that right away. So that eliminated the potential for a lot of issues right there. When it came to bathrooms, I think that's generally the biggest issue in the workplace, especially for trans women. I think trans men have it a little bit, you know, men are a little less concerned with who's in their bathroom than women. On the onset, I decided to use a single stall washroom in the shipping department just to kind of make it easier on everybody else. And why wouldn't I want my own bathroom?
Absolutely.
Right. So I did that for a period of time. I did have an issue with one employee and one member of management. That they would I was locked out of that bathroom several times, and it got to the point where we ended up having to go and have a conversation with the plant manager and say, like, look, this is going to stop. Then there was a point where somebody started wiping feces on the bathroom wall. At that point, my workplace actually stepped up, sent somebody out to Walmart to get a new lock, and I got the key, and that was the end of any bathroom harassment there.
Mm. Oh, that's great. So you're not only did the union support you, but management supported you.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So so a lot of things went right for you in your transition, and I think probably what aided that was the association you had with the United Steelworkers and becoming a spokesperson for your union. Now, you suggested that you've been asked to talk in a lot of places where people are coming out and transitioning in the workplace. Has that occurred very often within the business where you work right now?
No, like at my workplace, I was the first.
Mm-hmm. Are you the only?
The first and only. Now, we did have one other trans person that worked there for a short period of time. They weren't transitioning on the job. And interestingly, when they were hired, I had a couple of the fellas come to me and say, hey, look, we heard this person's transgender. If they haven't had surgery, shouldn't they be using that washroom with you? And that right there, I said, okay, obviously I've sent a mixed message here. They can use whatever washroom they want. Whether or not they've had surgery is none of your business. Why are you thinking about your coworkers' genitals? And when you say it like that, people go, oh, well, I'm not. I don't want to know. And that's actually when I went to HR and handed them my bathroom key and said, starting tomorrow, I'm going to be in the men's locker room with everybody else. That employee ended up not staying long term. But I really believe that at this point, if somebody were to transition in the workplace in this job, that they'd have a good plan to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I guess it's interesting. I wonder how it would go over in your workplace if it was the other way around, somebody transitioned into female, but you have no experience with that. But what other companies have you worked with? I assume they're all associated with United Steelworkers.
Yeah, I generally I do work with the steelworkers, and oftentimes I don't even know the company that I'm working with. So I generally deal directly with the member. So I have an open forum that any member, anybody who's connected with the United Steelworkers can look up my name, send me a message, and say, this is what I need, this is what I'm dealing with, you know, what assistance can you provide?
Mm-hmm.
So usually I deal directly with that member, sometimes with their staff rep, because really the idea is to not need me. The idea is to get that member's representative trained and knowledgeable so that they can assist them and any other members moving forward. My hope is that this position isn't needed at all in a couple of years.
That would be wonderful. Would you be willing to share that open forum information with us?
Sure. You can always email me at mfulk@usw.ca.
So with all your advocacy, you're seeing a lot of really positive things happening in companies that are connected with the United Steelworkers. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. The movement we're seeing in the United States is especially heartwarming within the union. We formed an international LGBTQ advisory committee, and this committee reports directly to our International Human and Civil Rights Department. That covers all the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and it's at first we got a little bit of pushback here and there. Our union is 850,000 strong, so you're gonna have a lot of different opinions there, right? But for our international, all the way up to the president to say, look, this committee matters, we're gonna embrace it, and we're gonna move forward as a union, period, has kind of created a little bit of a waterfall of change within the union. So now we're talking about, changing international constitution to actually mandate inclusive contract language. In the United States, if you don't necessarily have protection, and it varies state by state or even by municipality, the best protection you're going to get is a union contract. Even if they change the laws and the Equality Act passes, and then you have that promise of human rights protection, it can always be taken away. The law can change. Your contract is written in stone. It supersedes the law. So it's really important when we're talking unions to get that contract language in there. Every now and then we'll run across the contract that still says he all the way through it. Well, we know that these workplaces aren't all men. So moving towards a gender neutral contract language doesn't just benefit our LGBTQ plus siblings, it benefits the sisters within the union that have been left out of contract language, or, kind of implied that certain positions weren't for them, right? So it's causing our union to move forward in other areas and having ripple effects in other areas of human and civil rights as well.
Well, that's wonderful. That's great news. Now I'm just going to do one more quick break for Pride London Network to do their thing, and we'll be right back with Mayson Fulk. We're speaking with Mayson Fulk. So Mayson, I was wondering, with your job, and it sounds like there aren't very many trans people involved at your place of employment, or even within the United Steelworkers, it sounds like the number is quite low. Do you ever feel like you are a token for the organization?
Absolutely, I sometimes do. And I have admittedly allowed myself a certain amount of tokenization because in the bigger scheme of things, it helps our community within the union. And it helps kind of get the education out there, because I like to say that if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. So since there's no other trans people actually out there doing that work in the union right now and pushing for that education and those rights, I kind of have that responsibility to do that. And it's allowed me to get educated in other unions, broader union things as well, like arbitrations, grievances, the things that will allow me to have a career within my union moving forward. So I allow a bit of it, but never too much.
And I'm kind of curious now in terms of your personal experience with homophobia and transphobia. Have you experienced that a lot in and around like the city, or in other venues? Because we've been talking about work, we haven't really touched on life in general. Or is your experience limited in terms of homo and transphobia?
I would say I definitely experienced that more so in the States. Homophobia, especially when I was living in Virginia. You're talking about a very straight white Christian environment. They talk about Southern hospitality, and let me tell you, it is real. They are very kind and accommodating as long as you fit in their box.
I'm gonna, so you really haven't experienced anything in terms of transphobia or homophobia here in London?
No, I've had pretty limited experience in that regard here in London for sure. Like I said, people kind of knew me. I think partially because of my stature. I'm a very small person. And so they remember me from before, and I haven't had a lot of pushback, really, honestly. London's been pretty kind to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to today's interview, subjects you'd like to bring up?
I think, one note that I like to bring up when I'm talking to people and they're struggling through a workplace transition, or they're struggling trying to find some support, because it can be difficult, especially at the beginning of a transition. It can be all encompassing and just exhausting to a point. And the one thing that I always recommend to people is get involved in something. Whether it's your Pride board, or, we have Trans London here, or, if church is your thing, get involved in your church. Or if the union is there, get involved in your union. Just get involved. Be part of something that's bigger than you, that gives you an opportunity to give back. Because that in itself is an enormously healing thing. And before you know it, when you're helping other people, you'll realize that it causes you to grow as a person, even if that's not what you intended to do at the outset.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Reaching out and communicating with organizations and people in general is really important. I've often said that no minority ever makes change on their own. They need strong allies walking side by side with them to affect change.
Absolutely, and allyship matters. The voices of our allies are often heard a whole lot clearer than our own voices. So it's really, really important to foster good allies, and I like to even say accomplices. An ally An ally's like, yeah, I'm there for you, buddy. But that accomplice is like, no, let's go out there. I got you. Right. So to have strong accomplices, and you'll find that when you get involved in these groups, and you will change people around you without even meaning to, just by being you, just by being involved, and they meet you and they are able to see you, and it opens their eyes to your entire community.
Right. Basically what it does is it removes that notion that you're something other, and it breaks down that wall of fear that automatically goes up when people are faced with something that they're not familiar with or comfortable with. But once people start to engage in conversation with you, and they find out that you're human and a warm and loving person, it can really make a positive change in their attitude. I've seen that in all my experience so far here in London, whether it was at the university or companies I've talked to. That's great advice. Okay, so unless there's anything else you'd like to say, I'm gonna say thank you to you. This was a wonderful talk, and I'm sure the people who view it are going to find it very informative. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay. So we've been talking to Mayson Fulk today, and I'm going to encourage people to stay tuned, because Pride London Festival, through Pride London Network, will be airing a series of discussions with transgender people in this venue called Let's Talk Trans. Let's Talk Trans actually started off as a Facebook page where transgender people could join, and it was open to have discussions that they couldn't have through other support groups. So it's a venue for some rather candid conversations about transitioning and problems they're experiencing. The Facebook page is still available for people to join, and it's been a real pleasure to see Let's Talk Trans expand into this video format, which we have a series of shows coming up over the next year. And I would invite anybody who has any suggestions for subject matter to contact myself at amanda@pridelondon.ca, or to contact the board at info@pridelondon.ca, and we will entertain any subject for future shows. We try to engage people who have a lot of expertise and experience in the community, such as our guest today. And again, I would like to thank Mayson and wish everybody I won't say a happy IDAHOT, but I'll say, let's go out and celebrate our victories, as well as acknowledging the homo, trans, and biphobia that we face, because I think we need to acknowledge all the positive things that are being made. Again, thank you for viewing today, and good evening.
You're watching Let's Talk Trans. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Girl, come on to me. Turn up your temperature, make you want for me. Girl, come on to me. Girl, come on to me. Girl, come on to me. Come over here and perform for me. She whine like a gypsy. From left hand to right, she a swing there. Wanna try get fling where, but you not feel the vibe where them a bring there. Need you over right there with me there, but you in your own world not free me. She not realize I am the DJ, so me take up the mic and then say, girl, yeah, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, 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 diggy, diggy, bring, come give it to me, girl, yeah, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, 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 diggy, diggy, bring, come give it to me, girl, give it to me, girl. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, girl. Give it, 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 give it. Come here now, girl. Come here now, girl. Bam, 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 dig it, bam, 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 dig it, bam, bam. Come over here and perform for me. Girl, come on to me. Girl, come on to me. Girl, come on to me. Come over here and perform for me. She bubble and wine and turn it there. Me a tell you say I'm murder commit there. Me not stop look for the body cause it fit, yeah. She a top thing, she legit, yeah. Just want get piece of it, yeah. Come and work hard, never yet counterfeit there. When me go play this hit, yeah. Take up the mic and spit, yeah. Girl, yeah, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, 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 diggy, diggy, bring, come give it to me, girl, yeah, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, 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 diggy, diggy, bring, come give it to me, girl, give it to me, girl, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, girl, give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, give it. Come here now, girl. Come here now, girl. Dig it, bam, 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 dig it.